barber shop. See, I got me one cave.
You were the attorney for
Flag.
the police, right? So to recognize your face from the James. What is it called? The Civil Service Board. And then let Michael Carter have it.
It's coming, yeah, but we had called them to represent a couple years. But what I want to ask you, because it's going to change, the election going to, I'll let you.
Test.
I literally was working with legislators to get them here, so they can hear the record from, and I was working with them, so they wouldn't. So I changed the time, and then they couldn't make it.
Right, Sam told me that, so, he said you're going to send his representative as well.
So I'm waiting to see if, did we talk to any council members that are coming? How you doing? Good to see you.
That is your red chair?
No, I mean, you can sit there. I don't care about the location.
I thought they had the red one for you, the hot one.
Nah, you can be. How you doing?
You gonna be
Yeah, right.
Okay, good. Yeah, I told him I saw you. Okay, I'm gonna move back over here.
Again, it's okay if I acknowledge you though, right?
Oh, sure, sure.
So it's 2 o'clock in the day, and I'm not trying to waste anybody's time. I know we.
I'm gonna take mics
Can-
to them when they need to speak.
Can y'all hear me without this? Sure. Everybody can hear me without this? All right. Oh, you can. Okay. All right. Good deal. So it's 2 o'clock. I want to make sure that I'm not wasting anybody's time. We're trying to wait till some other elected officials came by. But it's all right. They'll walk in a little late. Before I start, I want to acknowledge the elected officials or their representatives that are in the room so you know who is around. You want to?
I'm Robert Williams, Sam Jenkins Legislative Assistant. You know, I'm a former professor at Southern University for 45 years and a school board member for 10 years. Father of the magnet school.
And we have Senator Paycock's representative here as well. And we are waiting on Representative Glover's representative, who should be walking in any minute now. Before we get into the comments today, I want to make some short comments myself. The loss of life in our community, it's always unfortunate. It always breaks our heart when anybody passes away. And it stings a little bit more. It cuts us a little bit deeper when it's an officer-involved shooting. as was the case with Anthony Childs. Anthony Childs was a son, he was a father, he was a veteran who fought for his country. And I can't imagine the loss that his family wakes up with every day, his friends wake up with every day. It just breaks my heart. Our officers are charged with a very, very difficult task. I've been in their shoes before. And they're making decisions sometimes that are tough, and they're thinking about returning home to their families as well. With all that's happened in the past, I'm hoping that we can come here today to talk about how we can put measures in place going forward in the future to keep everybody safe. Keep everybody safer. That's the reason why you've taken time out of your schedule today. I've taken time out of my schedule today so we can come together as a community to figure out what that looks like going forward. So today we're going to have a bit of an educational component to it. We'll talk about what's in place right now. As far as a citizens review board, we have a civil service board, and we have our attorney, the city's attorney that represents the city on that board, who can kind of outline that board. And we can talk about whether or not we want a citizens review board, what that board would look like, if we want to amend the current civil service board. And the reason why we have a state presence here is because the civil service board gets their authority from state legislation. So we just want to figure out exactly what our path forward looks like in making our community safer for everybody. So I'll end my comments there, and I'll pass the mic to Ms. Buckles, who represents us on the Civil Service Board. She'll talk, and then we'll all just have a discussion.
Good afternoon. My name is Nicole Buckle. I'm one of the attorneys for the city, and I do represent the city in matters before the Shreveport Municipal Fire and Police Civil Service Board. So we just wanted to make sure that everyone is aware of the board and what they are responsible for. The Shreveport Civil Service Board is actually the only board in the state that has 9 members. All other boards have 5 members. One member of the board is appointed directly by City Council. 2 members are nominated from Louisiana State University Shreveport and then selected by council. 2 members are nominated from Southern University and then appointed by council. 2 members are selected directly by votes from the Shreveport Police Department by the officers, and 2 members are selected directly from the members of the Shreveport Fire Department. So that makes up your 9 members. The Civil Service Board is designed to oversee the operations of the police and the fire department. Any person can make a complaint. Of course, there are procedures for internally in the Shreveport Police Department as well as the fire department where someone can make an internal complaint. But someone can also go directly to the Civil Service Board and make a complaint. If that happens, the Civil Service Board is mandated to open an investigation and review the matter. And that does happen on a regular basis. If a complaint is made, they have 14 days to initiate and basically send a notice of investigation to the officer or officers, or if it's firemen, to whoever may be involved, and that's the subject of the complaint. The officers then have 30 days to obtain counsel, or they can waive that right. But after that 30 days, the board then holds a hearing. And evidence is presented, witnesses are called, and the board has to investigate and make a determination on that. So that board is in place, and there is a procedure for making complaints.
Thank you.
Okay.
And we can start the discussion now. So anybody in the audience with comments, any ideas?
We'd like to thank our honorable mayor and to all the appointed representatives that are elected here, and to the citizen, and most of all to the Project Impact Group that are sitting in the audience. We're here on the backdrop of Anthony Childs, and hopefully this is some healthy, peaceful dialogue on how we can come up with solutions to this problem. In spite of what's going on, we have one of the best cities in America, in spite of what's going on. We're no different than any other city in America that has issues and concerns, but sitting down together as men and women, diverse, Democrats, Republicans, independent, black, white, young or old, rich or poor, creating and crafting ideas together is the best way to go. So as we sit here today, the Project Impact Group is a group that was started out between the three of us because Pastor Maid had a meeting at Winfield to address it, and Mr. Lusser was working with the family. Project Impact means, acronym, I love acronyms, everybody know me, proving, mobilizing police action with the community together. We want to make an impact together with the police department. I want to be clear and set the tone. We're not anti-police at all. We love our men and women in blue, but you know, not only does police lives matter, Shreveport matters, and black lives does matter. So as we sit here, we want to discuss. We have picked three people from our group to speak on different topics. We have Mr. Luster, we have Mr. Mays, Pastor Mays, I'm sorry, community activist Mays. We have Tamaria and, help me with your young man, I'm getting old. Byron Walker. So we have some recommendation from the group. So with that being said, I'm not going to talk any longer, but I do want to understand that some critical areas that we formed two committees, Mr. Mayor, is the crime and economic diversification initiative is very important to us. Crime and economic diversification initiative. We hear the pulse of the people, they want jobs. They want to be able to come in and pay taxes in the city, but also be able to get contracts from a city that they've been keeping afloat for many years, and mostly minorities are profiled, and they're not able to even do business with the city. So we got to find a way to create jobs and hope vocational training and recreational training and find things for our people in this city to be able to prosper and grow, and we grow together. So hopefully we can address those two issues. We have two committees, public and justice, public safety, we have economic, and we have a fair share initiative. So at that time, I'm going to turn over to the group. We want to keep it peaceful. We want to keep it decorum. We're not here to point fingers or finger point. We just here to try to get along for once in this city to work together. It's not about all the other things we talked about. And hopefully we can do that before we leave today, all right? First, we'll have Pastor Mays.
Thank you very much, Mike. We thank you, Mayor, and to all those that are here assembled. This has been a long fight and a long time coming here in the city of Shreveport to where we can have some serious dialogue with the mayor and council that seems to be concerned about the betterment of Shreveport as a whole. Most people ask me, Mr. Mayor, they said, why you didn't stop after decades of asking for a citizens review panel. In our group, we have decided that we have a model of what works. Now, I know the Civil Service Board was mentioned, and I know Internal Affairs are one of the entities, but we know, and I have listings of information, most of these organizations, well, these two organizations, when it relates to people of color, it's either going to come back not sustained, or an investigation is always going to be in favor of the police officer. And the sad reality of it is that even a wrong clock is right at least once a day. So we have their information on them and how they operate. So I'm going to give the floor to Omara, but because we have the stats and we have the statistics of models that work, it is a fact, Mr. Mayor, our mayor, who we elected, who we love. The police department cannot police themselves. My brother-in-law is a police. We have ex-police officers that we're going to have on this board that has years of experience, that knows that there is a problem. If there was not a problem, we wouldn't be here. There is a problem. If the Civil Service Board was doing their job, we would not be here today. If Internal Affairs was doing their job, we would not be here today. But there is a serious problem within the city of Shreveport, and we hoping that collectively with the police department, you and this council, that they can hear the needs of the people. I talked to some individuals when we went to Baton Rouge, and they said, we can't understand, Pastor Mays, we took 3 buses down there. We can't understand how is it that blue lives matter, but black lives don't. So I'm like, we can pass laws for that, but when it comes down to black lives, black individuals, people in this city that is unarmed, and people of color, we said, well, we have to put that off, or we have to come up with something in order for our officers to do what they should do by every citizen, serve and protect. So I've been a victim of this system for a long time, and that's why I decided to do what I decided to do. I wasn't going to quit. Bishop Caldwell, he should be on his way. He said, Pastor, you just wouldn't give up, because I'm not. But I wanted to say this to you, Mr. Mayor, thank you so much for having this meeting. Anthony Child's family, I love you all. I sympathize with the loss. We've been constantly in contact ever since this happened, and we want to stop it today. We got some ideas that we're going to submit to the mayor and the council, and the mother just walked in, and as I was saying, we sympathize with her and her family, because I was telling the sister on the way in, who would have thought that Anthony would be the spark? Because in 2005, I picked up Al Sharpton, me, and Dr. Otis Cash from the airport. Dr. Cash is gone on, but the fight still remains. I mean, we got to keep doing what we got to do. We want to work together in this city. We do not want the media to change the narrative or any other individual that is seeking to damage what God is trying to do here. We rebuke that right now, because the narrative cannot be changed where it's us against the police. That's why I'm glad Mike made his statement. We are not against the police. We're not anti-police. But what we are pro-life. We're pro-life. And with that, I yield the floor now to Omara, and she's going to give you all an ideal of models that works. Okay, yeah, come on up. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, love.
Hello, everyone. Hey, Mayor, Mr. Williams. Hello, attorney. I didn't realize that it would be in this platform, so excuse me if I'm not prepared to deliver my message, but I was charged with speaking about the Citizens Review Board and looking at other models from around the country. And I think it's really pointed what Pastor Mays just said regarding this is not a us versus them. In fact, what this Citizens Review Board process will do is spark a collaborative process whereby we can understand what the police are doing and the police can understand our community and help to fix that. So the Civilian Service Board is one type of Citizens Review Board, but there are many, and there are many examples. There's been much research around essentially community accountability structures, right? So in New Orleans, there's an independent police monitor, which is a separate agency. So it's more than just a board, the IPM, where they're a separate authority and can investigate, or really what they do is they review the police. So it's not a thorough investigation into particular incidents, whereas the Civilian Service Board does something more of that vein. And then there are other options, and I don't want to belabor that point. We can sit down and we can convene on that and talk specifics, but I mean, there are other options like special prosecutors that can be brought in as well. But I think the most important piece is, what will the process be to get us to where we need to be, okay? And we believe that even if it doesn't end up being the Citizens Review Board that we're envisioning at this point, that there definitely needs to be a public partnership, a collaborative decision-making model whereby we go through a process like it's been done around the country of investigating what will work for Shreveport, because what may work for New Orleans may not necessarily work for Shreveport. And so one thing that we're suggesting is that there be a task force or a commission, right, where citizens can be a part of the process. You bring in folks from academia, you bring in citizens at large. Folks in this room definitely need to be a part of that process. And we can have actual codified information that points to what we need. I think it's important also to realize that 10% of the police force causes 90% of the crime, right? Or the problem, 90% of the problem that we're experiencing. And while crime is going down, and police-involved shootings like what happened to Anthony Childs is going down, it's decreasing, the reports of police misconduct are increasing. So that shows you that there is a problem. When crime is going down, but we're still getting reports of police misconduct, there's something that's off. And it takes only one incident between a community member and a member of law enforcement to traumatize and color the way the public feels about law enforcement. Just one incident. My son and I went through a similar incident with the police, and though with all the drama going on around policing in this country, I was not terrified of the police until my personal interaction. And that's what we have to clean up, right? It doesn't need to just be us sitting down learning from the police, but they have to learn the context and the culture of our community. And one vehicle that can help to make that happen, in addition to convening a commission or a task force around building the board or whatever we decide it needs to be, there has to be a thorough citizens education program. And there is a model that already exists in the city that's provided by Interfaith. And so what we envision is major support from the city. You're visible, whereby we can talk about, we can go deeper into the different types of citizen review boards. We can go deeper into police reform and the types of things that we need to see. And though it is just a small percentage of police officers who cause the problem is infrastructural, it's systemic. And so that means that policies, processes, and practices must be changed. Okay, so that's, I hope I covered everything. Did I get everything I was supposed to cover? Okay. Thank you, Mayor.
Yep, thank you.
I'd like to thank you all for coming out, and I just really have to piggyback on what Amara just said to a certain degree. But we are, those of us that were in the council meeting on last Tuesday, we saw a prime example of what's needed in this city. De-escalation by our police officers, because we cannot allow them to just run amok when a situation occurs. You just run amok, and as if they don't have any training, and accosting people, that practice can no longer be continued. Anthony Childs is no longer with us because of an incident that did not require jail time. It was a fine, $100 fine. And we sit in the community and we point fingers and we cast blame, but we have got to start holding people accountable in this city who make decisions where we are concerned, and we don't do that. We want everybody to like us, and nobody gives a care about us, because if they did, we wouldn't be begging and crying for what we're crying for now. We're asking now for economic equality. We're asking now for a disparity study to be done in a city that says that we are the majority. And it's, I guess we are a majority in an apartheid situation, because we're still begging and asking people to give us what should be rightfully ours. So we have got to get away from this model. We need the Citizen Review Board for the fact there are too many brothers and too many complaints where police officers are concerned that goes unaddressed. I'm a victim of that. As Kamari spoke, they beat me in '72. Freshman at Southern University, couldn't go back to school from the beating that they put on me. And some of the black leaders got with me, what you gonna do? I wanna go forward. And I never heard from them. From that day to this day, one is dead and one is still alive, but they never got back with me. And the guy that decided to help me, he died. Grave Thomas, he died. So we've been a victim, not just recent victim, we've been a victim since we've been on these shores. And they talk about the sagging, repealing the sagging pants. It should be repealed, but we need an alternative in place. I don't mean give our boys something to do other than sag. I mean give our boys some wholesome, positive programs. And we have models and things in place, but people, for selfish reasons, shut them down. Anything that works for us as a people is shut down. And we don't, and I don't want to step on any toes, and like I said the other day, we've had 3 black mayors in this city. We have 4 black councilmen today, and we're catching as much hell today as we caught in the 60s. We're not getting anything done from our leaders. They sit and they act as if I say something, confront the issue. We elected you to come down here and deal with the issues that are confronting black people in our community. And you sit, the leadership, sit and act as if all is well. All is not well. We're catching hell in the community. We got young boys who need a job, want a job. Guy died last week, got killed last week in Moortown. I had applied for some NIP, neighborhood improvement money. We didn't get the money, but he's one of the main guys that said, man, when you get that money, please let me go to work for you. Had we got that money, he'd been working, maybe he would still be alive today. Maybe. So we have got to really look at ourselves and see what we can do from a leadership perspective, mayor, council, and see what we can do is to create some alternatives, not just come up here to have meetings to discuss all these other issues. We need some jobs. We need some hope because our peoples are dying. And where there's hopelessness and despair, you get what you have in our community. People are turning on themselves. A wife beater, he don't fight the people in the street. He come home and jump on the person that's closest to him. That's his wife, his children. They're the ones that abuse. So people are killing each other in the street. They're killing each other because they turn inward. They turn on each other because they have no hope. And we've got to do something about that, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
My name is Byron Wolcott. We'd like to thank you for taking the initiative to meet with us, Mayor Perkins. The death of Anthony Childs has brought many issues and mistreatments that our community has suffered, from local law enforcement to the limelight. Childs' death has struck a chord that resonates sadness and disbelief in the hearts of the men and women that sit before you. I've known Anthony Childs since he was 5 years old. He came into my life, and he was at my mother's house almost every other Sunday. I was at his mother's house probably once or twice a week. And to know that the last time that I'm going to see Anthony is on the TV dying affected me immensely. And in doing that, I met these individuals here, and we all care about the city, about people, just like Anthony, just like you, just like me, and we've come together to do something about it. You were elected because the city wanted. No, the city needed change. And it is said the change doesn't come quickly. But we before you don't believe that. We don't believe in those sayings. We would like to present you with a list of initiatives that will bring immediate positive change to Shreveport that we believe may be under your purview. Number one is we request a task force be formed to analyze, research, and build out the structure of the Citizens Review Board for the SPD to be started immediately, so that once legislation is approved, the Citizen Review Board can be implemented into service immediately. Two, popular education is education as a praxis of freedom. It is an approach to education where participants engage each other and the educator as co-learners to critically reflect on the issues in their community and then act to change them. We request that the city's government take a popular education approach with a citizen education program for citizens on how the Shreveport City Council works, on how they can make effective change using the City Council, and the tools and programs that the city has in place for the betterment of citizens' lives and well-beings. This would also include the city educating its citizens and police with a reputable defense attorney or judge on citizens' rights when being detained by police and the best processes and procedures to apply when stopped. It would also be a good idea to educate the public on offenses, behavior, and actions that are frequently prosecuted, yet violators didn't realize they were breaking the law. One of the most important things on here that was admitted on several meetings that we had with the police chief and the coroner is that we need to eliminate the proactive policing techniques that Police Chief Ben Raymond affirms that the Shreveport Police Department uses to circumvent citizens' constitutional rights. Stop violating citizens for petty, victimless crimes. On the Anthony Childs case, I've seen that video, and he turns around in the street. He goes past, turns around in the middle of the street to come back to get him. On reading what was said by the police spokesman in the newspaper and on seeing it on the website for KSLA Channel 12, they said that he was being stopped. The police officer was attempting to Terry stop Anthony Childs so that he could investigate, ask him some questions about a possible offense or a line of questioning about and something that he needed to investigate. But that line of questioning, that line of thinking changed 2 months later. Instead of him stopping Anthony to question him about undisclosed item. Now he was stopping him to give him a ticket for sagging. We want the truth. The truth doesn't need explaining. The truth holds up no matter how many questions come at you. And the truth doesn't need to be changed, do a whole 180-degree change when you're asked another question. And that's what we feel we got out of that. And just those techniques, let's stop people for sagging. Let's stop people for these petty victimless crimes, leads to escalation. You know, it can lead to you catching somebody with something illegal on them, but it can also lead to death. It can also lead to escalation as well. And we want that to stop. Requiring the Shreveport Police Department to use de-escalation techniques rather than using force and violence as the first option. The example was Tuesday's city council meeting when Marvin Muhammad was asked to leave, and the first thing Police Chief Ben Raymond did when he came up there is put his hands on Marvin. Not, hey, need you to get out of here, need you to come with me, move out of the way. But first thing he did was put his hands on Marvin. That is not going to de-escalate anything. You put your hands on a man, that man is going to react and respond. And the police know this. They know that when you do certain things, it's going to initiate a response, a more aggressive response. So thankfully, Marvin had enough gumption and thought to not respond that way. But Police Chief Ben Raymond should have known better than to put his hands on somebody in a public forum like this as a first line of defense. So, number 5, make sure the Shreveport coroner performs all the proper tests to factually account for police and or victim use of firearm, a gunshot residue test, especially if one of the participants is killed and unable to testify. Investigators must speak for the victim that is killed. Investigators should not go with the status quo and go with the cheapest option. At the meeting that we had at Wallette Public Library, one of the things that the coroner said was that he didn't do the test because he saw the gun there when he got there. He didn't do the test because it's an expensive test, and he didn't see a need for it. What is the price of Anthony Child's life? What is the price of knowing the truth about Anthony Childs, especially when Anthony Childs is dead? There's only one story to be told, and that's Travion Brooks' story. Somebody has to speak for Anthony. We'd also ask that you institute a real fair share program. Close the loopholes that allow misuse and abuse. Make sure it produces adequate results for the contractors and people it was intended to help. People shouldn't be able to come and change the numbers and to their advantage without being able to back those things up on the current fair share program. Number 7, hire a new person to conduct police officer psych evaluations. We need a new mental health professional that has not fallen into a level of comfort and complacency with the job and abnormal behavior exhibited by those he assesses. I don't know how long the current psychologist has been been doing these evaluations, but it comes time for a change. You're our change. They need change. Number 8. So very important. Police officers need to be tested for drugs, steroids, and alcohol immediately after a shooting or hospitalizing a citizen. That needs to happen. Anthony Childs is tested for drugs. Why isn't the same done for a person who is doing the shooting? We need to know. Everybody needs to know. Was he thinking correctly? Was he thinking coherently when he decided to pull the trigger, when he decided to put this person in the hospital? Number 9, Add a person picked from the community to serve as a citizen community liaison to complement the community liaison officer provided by law enforcement. That person would work with the community liaison officer from the police department to help bridge the gap between our neighbors and police. The community liaison officer on the police force, it's a good thing, but he works for the police force. We need a person that that lives in the neighborhood to be with that person, to ride along, go to different functions with him, to let him know what's going on in the neighborhood, to let him know what meetings and concerns are going on. People don't talk to police. Nobody's going to come up to the policeman and say, hey, this is what's going on. They're not going to feel comfortable doing that. But if you have a person that's in the neighborhood, that's their job, to go around to different functions, to talk with the community liaison officer from the police department. This citizen community liaison can help facilitate that and help get change into the police department. Number 10, our last thing, is we would like you to add a cultural diversity program to the police academy, one that is new and up to date. I believe the one that they use now is antiquated, is from 1986. Candidates should be informed on the different people that live in this community and the tumultuous history that they have had with law enforcement. The candidates that are striving to become policemen, they should know the lineage of the Southern Police Force. It should be discussed, especially its link to slave patrols pre-Civil War and the link to vigilante groups post-Civil War. Give police the tools and education they need to contextually understand the community they serve and protect.
So the mayor come up, I just want to talk about the good things about coming up and how to bridge the gap and try to reattach and build our relationship back up with the police department. There is a baseball game planned, and the chief is not here, but he's all in on having a baseball game between off-duty police officers, preachers, and the people. And I think, James, you still got a little baseball in you, and I know the councilman got a little more hits left in him, but there is a game plan to try to de-escalate. I'm all football. Okay then. De-escalate and try to build, rebrand and reconnect the relationships that's been too much division. So what we're trying to do something positive to reestablish that, and that's coming up probably in July. The chief is not here, but he's all in and supporting, and hope that we will come out and support this community-oriented policing summit to try to unite us back together. We're picking the high crime area in our community. So, Jane, that might be in one of you councilmen's areas. So that's where the game going to be played. Start telling people about it. Let's get excited by trying to do something positive. We talked about a lot of things, but that's one thing coming up, Mayor. I don't know if you still got a little baseball in you, but I think you do. There you go, Mayor.
No, so I do not want to spend this time talking. I want to spend this time more so listening.
We got some other people. I'm gonna ask Najeri Kamara, would she stand, and because she was one of the persons that was at the last meeting, and we took a lot of questions from the audience.
Yes, quick, I just want to acknowledge Representative Glover's representative is here. Actually, Ms. Bernadine, that's in the crowd, and also we had 2 city council members join us before I ended my opening comments as well. So, I'm sorry. Oh, she wants to make a statement.
Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor and citizens and those who serve the community. Representative Glover did send a number of messages that he would like for me to share. Additionally, I'm here to take copious notes so that we can get them back to him. And so he sent them in 2 different messages, if you'll give me the opportunity to get them. In fact, maybe I'll start with the last one. He said, in terms of informing the discussion, you can hear that this is an area where he sponsored legislation multiple times between 1999 and 2004. The closest we ever got to final passage was in 2004, when the legislation successfully passed out of the House but died in the Senate. And this is his other message. And thank you for the time to allow me between the messages. I think you'll find this one interesting. He said, so that we're clear in understanding, the only way a board could effectively function is if state law is passed that allows members of the review board to have access to police information that is currently prohibited by a series of current state statutes. And as I mentioned, I will take notes and be sure to get back the digest of what you're discussing to him for further action. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to say good afternoon to everyone, to our Honorable Mayor. Thank you so much for participating and facilitating or allowing this forum to take place, and certainly want to take my hats off to Mr. Smith, former Commissioner Williams, and also to my good friend and brother, Reverend Mays, for the work that they're doing. But I'm Najiri Kamara, lifelong resident of the city of Shreveport and homeowner at 1505 Abbey Street. I want to express again my appreciation to you for, springing into action and having the fortitude to allow such a forum to occur where you hear from the citizens and allow them to speak to specific issues, and for all to receive clarity about what is already in place or what process is required to ensure that everyone is held accountable in the performance of their public service duties. Mayor Perkins, you have taken the helms of the city at an opportune time in your public service career to ensure that all in this community fare well when it comes to enjoying the benefits and services of our community. The historical, political, cultural, and social norms of this community have been structured in a way to ensure that all do not fare well. As a mother of 3 black sons, I stand here today to attest that the systems that are in place have been structured against the stability and success of the black man. The educational system, the health system, the legal system, and the justice system. I have had personal life experience with the unjust disenfranchisement that was placed upon my sons. It's a lot, and I won't talk about that today because we're here about this police review board, but on November 11th, 2015, my son, the late Mr. Alexander Pierre James, 31 years of age at that time, received multiple gunshot wounds in the chest and torso area in an incident involving gunfire that occurred on a video at the Moonrider Inn on Monkhouse Drive. To this date, I don't know if the Shreveport Police Department has the case open or if it is closed. It was handled very tacky. The detective that was assigned to the case, I had to hunt him down, chase him down to talk with him. I gave him so much information that was coming to me off the street when it first happened, and he basically dismissed it all. After about 9 months, I went down several times to the department to talk with the detectives, and the one who had the case had been reassigned to homicide. From homicide to robbery, but I was told that the case was still assigned to him. Where they do that at? To this date, I have heard nothing, and I've been smelling something fishy since it first happened. My sons has 4 children that want and need answers. Mayor Perkins, this police incident is just, one of many things that you're going to have to address in order to create pathways for peace, harmony, balance, and quality of life that all in this community can enjoy. And I again want to thank you for this opportunity. I look forward to continued open community dialogue about what is best for the majority of the systems. Here of late, this year recently, my house wasn't shot up, but my son, he has a house on my property, and his vehicle and house was shot up. We called the police. They came and began immediately very aggressive, toward my son and myself, and it offended me. And, I'm a born-again Christian, but, I'm going to flip. My son said, Mama, go in the house. He sent me in the house, and another officer who pulled up, had to go ahead and settle the matter. But the police department, sometimes you can have an apple. It's so shiny. It looks so delicious. But when you cut it open, it's rotten to the core. Sometimes when you step in to make change occur, you have to actually change the people that have been a part of the system. If it's broken, it needs to be fixed. And I just agree with what the gentleman read on his things. I had idea also wanted to present about a community Congress for Justice. Same thing, to get citizens involved with, the community giving input about what we see will provide us all a better quality of life. I've been successful. My son was shot down, had mental illness since a small child. I actively involved since 1999 in this state, helping change the systems, beginning with the school to prison pipeline, where children who were mentally ill, unstable, were being penalized and punished and put into detention facilities. And so thusly, we've been a part of, giving testimony and so forth at the state level to help change and create the Lamont, what we have, where juvenile facilities provide more therapeutic services to children as opposed to punitive, and also what has created the coordinated system of care in our state so that mental health services can be provided to our young people covered under Medicaid and so on and so forth. But I have a lot to bring to the table, and just wanted to close it out with saying that I'm currently chair of the Northwest Louisiana Human Services District, have been for the past year, appointed by our community, and the governor, since 2010. So, I've been out here. I got a lot to offer and add to the table for solutions. So please include me, and thank you, Pastor Mays.
Thank you. We already know what has been done. We was a part of Cedric Glover and the march that we had on Shreveport. We are aware of that, but doing nothing is not an option. So we are going to get something done. We talked to Cedric. We know that the bill went through the House but didn't pass the Senate because the Republicans wanted things to remain the same. So we have had that discussion before, and Cedric is aware of that as well. So, but he's in support of us moving forward on getting something done in this city to make sure that all citizens are treated equally and fairly. So with that being said, I know the mothers in the audience and a few others that want to say something, and we're going to allow you an opportunity, but I wanted to thank the mayor and this council for at least hearing from the citizens of this city. See, most of the time people want to do the talking, but in this forum here, the mayor said, no, I want to feel you. That's why I got on social media and said that we finally got somebody that is hearing us, that's feeling the pain of this mother, the pain of this sister, the pain of this family, countless murders after murders after murders over and over and over again. And with that being said, before we get to someone else, a long time community activist who's been a friend of mine, I want to ask him to come up because he has some very interesting things. He was with us with the march. I was the first pastor that spoke out on the shooting of Marquise Husband. And Marquise had a cell phone in his hand. I told Bishop, he was at the hospital, Willis Knighton, with one of his members, and I said, I'm finna go public with this, and we're gonna make sure that we get some justice. It went international. We reached out to the National Action Network and everyone else. So, we done been through that, and Cedric did make sure that he tried to push it. He did all he could. But this is a new day, and we're gonna move forward. Come on, my brother.
First off, good afternoon for everybody. Great presentation. This is not a new issue. 1998, there were about between 8 to 10 murders by the Shreveport Police Department of unarmed black males in the city. We marched on the old city hall with all the mothers who had basically had to grieve for their children. So this is not a new issue by any stretch of the imagination. It's the latest in the saga. And this March made 16 years since Marquise Husband situation. I think what we need to actually do is reach out, as we've done with the criminal justice reform resumes, and reach out to colleagues, grassroots colleagues in New Orleans and other places, and make this become an issue that Vote and some of the other partners that we have already on the table with the criminal justice reform and school to prison pipeline. Nigeria and I have worked together with FLIC, Families of Louisiana's Incarcerated Youth. We have to basically form coalition in order to get the votes that's going to be done. Now, the difference with this versus other legislation is that the police department and the fire department were structured to be a good old boy system. I mean, that's just how it is structured. So the Civil Service Commission, that particular body is what really needs to be addressed, because they hide behind the Civil Service Board and the Internal Affairs. And so what we're talking about doing, they're going to fight tooth and nail, because they don't want citizens to be able to regulate law enforcement, which they should be able to do. Several of these guys, especially Travion Brooks, should be fired right now. I mean, he should not be on this force. He's already been brought back on. So in the immediate, that's something that can be done. He needs to be fired ASAP, and Chief Raymond needs to resign, because he has already lied to this council and to the community on multiple occasions, because Travion Brooks did know Anthony Childs. That's why he ran, because he had been harassing and terrorizing him in the past. And so they're spinning a narrative that is completely false, and that's why it took them so long to come up with this. But we have to remain vigilant. I like a lot of the initiatives that were brought forth. You can remove the fair share point, because that's totally different from what the Citizens Review Committee needs to be. That's something separate that we need to focus on, but not within the Citizens Review Committee. So we need to be very focused on that particular initiative alone. And so I applaud everybody for coming out, and hopefully this is something that moves forward. I'm glad that Shantae is here. He's running for the Senate, because you're going to have people at the state legislative level that pushes this. So Cedric Glover was definitely correct when he said this. This is a state issue, but it starts at the local level and then morphs into something on a larger scale. So with that, I'll pass the mic around, but just understand this is not new, and we have to continue to forge ahead. All right, Jay. Okay.
I'm Jay Brooker. I guess I got to Shreveport back in the 90s when they first came.
Did you want to say something? I'm good. I'm listening. You sure now?
I want to know,
I come to listen. Okay, you're my friend.
what I'm hearing now is that the state rep has made the decision that Shreveport going to have a citizen review board? Yes or no? Yes. Yes. Now, is there any way that Shreveport can challenge that? I think you can hear me. Is there any way that Shreveport can challenge the state thing to a Shreveport city? We having problem in the city of Shreveport. Now, I think we should try to challenge that and get a review board and let them say, hey, you can't do it.
Constitutionally, we can't. There's a supremacy clause that allows state laws to override anything we can make up at the city level. So we can't, and this has to be a concerted effort among us.
It's always a challenge to something. Yeah, always. Because if you're not going to challenge this thing and get a citizen review board, it's just like all the other meetings I've been coming to since 1993. Come up here and make good little speeches. They go off and somebody else they kill, they have another meeting. So it's time for a challenge.
Yeah, Mr. Flugers, I think the challenge is pretty apparent. You know, the challenge for this group is to figure out how they can enact change on a state level. So the challenge is there, just legally and constitutionally. The city can't do anything that'll override the state.
We have the challenge.
And the protocol is it has to be a resolution that comes from the city council, then it's forwarded to our state representatives, and then it goes through that legislative process. We are in the beginning stages we're doing things as we see the protocol requires that we do. We're forming the board, and we're supposed to get a resolution from the city council, and it's forward to our state reps. And they take it from there. That's why the last time it was done here, the legislatures passed it, but it failed in the Senate.
All right, thank you.
It's,
Could we get the exact statute that you're referencing?
The state statute, Louisiana statute.
Gotcha. Okay.
Precisely. And not to interrupt
That's the way it
in
was,
turn,
wasn't
but some of us gotta leave pretty soon. Is there a chance that you have any questions for the 10 things that this group has brought to you?
No, this is very clear. We can
Any questions?
no questions. Yep.
man, I'd really like to hear from you.
Yeah, I'm gonna make closing remarks. This mic works if you just want. Okay.
Yeah, I'll pass it to you. You got it.
I'll be very brief. Again, we'd like to thank the Mayor Perkins because at least you did take the time out to at least show some concern to address the citizens. But I would like to ask you and the two council members here, are you all really cool with the narrative that they have given us in the case of Anthony Childs? Because if you look at the police department's explanation, they done gave us 2 or 3 different narratives. And from my beliefs, if you got to change your story twice, that means you're lying about something. So what we're seeing is a police department that's very dysfunctional. I can be a witness as to seeing your police department run up to the wrong house on Mother's Day and brutalize a bunch of elderly people who was innocent. My question is this, though. If we do get a citizens review board, will it be stacked with people who have political interest, or will you actually get grassroots citizens who will have an interest in seeing that justice is being done? Because, again, I have to ask, are you all cool with the narrative that we are given in Anthony Childs' situation? And to counteract something that somebody said, I don't think that we're seeing a digression in police aggressiveness when we had 3 black men now killed in the last year here in Shreveport. So, again, the main thing I want to know is if we do establish a citizen review board, will it be, will there be allowed actual grassroots activists who has a vested interest in seeing change as opposed to some political or religious figure who's just a figurehead put into place to pacify us?
Great question. Great question. We've already decided it's going to have to be grassroots based. We discussed that in our meeting last Tuesday. It has to be grassroots based. But we have to have the professionals. We're going to need lawyers. We've already got a retired judge that we're going to be using. But it has to be grassroots based. We want people to look at this thing from the eyes that's been infected and affected by what has gone on in the city where policing is concerned. But we can put this board together, but we've got to be willing as a people to work with the police department. Because as long as there's a division, I don't care what board you put together, ain't nothing going to work.
One of the things I would be remiss because he's a longtime friend of mine, pastor as well. I would be remiss, and this happened in his community. I know he says he wants to listen, but he has the fortitude and the heart and the compassion. I've always saw that in him, and I would like for him to at least say something because this happened in his district. We elected him. And it wouldn't be in decency and in order if we didn't allow Councilman James Green to at least say something, because the mother is out there, the grandmother is a member of my former church, my home church, and they know your concern, and they love you, and they love the mayor, and they wanted you to hear them, and they feel you. You feel they pain because, Mayor, we've been going through this for too long, and we thank you. You was raised up in the community from which we live in, so you know the pain of our people, and you have the Spirit of God because you love God first, and then your political statue. So when good people do nothing, the book of Proverbs say, evil will prevail. So we got to do what we got to do. God bless you.
Thank you. I'd just like to say thank you for this opportunity. And, of course, feel your pain. Can't say that it goes as deep as yours because I'm not in your seat, but I pray for you all every day, every night. And, of course, I was a part of the legislation with Councilman Glover and Burrell and during that era. And of course, like he said, it got to the state representative, but the Senate did not approve it. But we're going to keep on fighting and we're going to get it done. And I'd just like to thank you all for all of the effort that's being put forth. And of course, this is what I believe. I believe that if we come together and pray, prayer will make a difference. And then we got to have faith, but faith without work is dead. So we all got to come together and we got to do what is right. And I believe that once we do what is right, that it will make a difference in our city. And I know we've had a lot of talking and we've had a whole lot of everything, and all of it has been good. But what I would like to do, and I said to Pastor Mays that I didn't want to speak, I came to listen because listening is very important. And I don't want anybody to think that when you talk to me about whatever, that it just fall on deaf ears. I'm concerned and I'm willing to do whatever it takes. But if it's okay with you all, I'd just like for us to just join hands and let's pray. Okay, that's what I didn't know. I thought we was at the end. Okay. Oh, well, why you tell me I was closing it? I was getting ready. I was getting ready to do. I was getting ready to do what I do at church in my closing.
Yeah, like I said, you still close. You and the Lord can close with me now. Before I close, Danny, do you want to make comments before I finish up? Please do. You good? Okay. You want to make some comments before? Okay. We'll take one more comment, then I'll add some closing remarks before we have a benediction by the council.
Okay. Good afternoon. I would like to say something about the Shreveport Police Department that needs to change, that I know that happens. Back in '89, they had a policeman that was pretty much terrorizing the streets. He was taken off the streets and put in an office where he stayed for a number of years until he made a racist comment about a co-worker. They put him back on the street to allow him to get his time to retire. This is the type of things that go on that keeps things the way they are. When you sweep things under the rug, it stays there, but again, it comes from under there. And as long as you have wrongdoing and you're trying to help somebody to retirement at the expense of other people, that is wrong. So, Mayor, I can give you some names. Now, I know he's probably retired by now, but this happens. Now, I have two sons that are in law enforcement. One is a detective in Natchitoches, one is in the Navy. I have cousins, relatives, and friends that's on the police department. My friend Ted Smith over here, a lot of them I know they're good people. So I know it's not the whole department, but you have a few that like Nigeria said, the apple is shiny, but when you cut it open, it's rotten to the core. And you have people that make important decisions that were low in rank at that time. Now they are some of the top people, so their views haven't changed. They're doing the same thing. Only difference is now they're in charge. So some things need to be looked at and taken care of. If not, this is going to continue to go on and on.
I have lived in several communities. I have lived in several communities and learned things about police departments that I want to share with you that might make our police department better. When I lived in Aspen, I had several incidents with the police. I hadn't done a crime, but, just something. And I was so impressed that I went to the chief of police to tell him how good the policemen were. And how did he do that? And he said, I have one rule. I will never hire a policeman that's been a policeman anywhere else, military or not. And he said, I will train them to be a policeman the way I want them, non-aggressive. Also in Aspen, a lot of the restaurants had what they call joiners table, where people by themselves come in, have breakfast, and mix with other people at the table. There was always a policeman there, and he got to know the people. They're like ambassadors. And the other thing they did, when there was a minor incident, the policeman would work it out on site. He was like the judge. He would listen to everybody, and he would come up with a compromise that everybody could accept. And going further back, I was out of town. It was Thanksgiving weekend. Came back in town and went in my house. It had been burglarized. Every drawer had been emptied, closets had been emptied, and I called the Shreveport police. Policeman that came out could not have been any better. He walked me through the house and asked me questions. He was great, and I made some coffee, and we sat down, and he said, I want to tell you something. Because you had 25 guns stolen, and I had the serial numbers and description, it has to go on the federal stolen gun site. And he said, but it won't, because of the Shreveport Police Department, there are 2 policemen who have financial interest in pawn shops, and they stopped these guns from going on the National Register. And I'd sent the serial numbers and descriptions to all the pawn shops and to the sheriff. And the sheriff called me one day and went down and had one of my guns that had been turned in. And he said, your guns are not on the federal site. And I said, can you do it? He said, no, it's a city's prerogative. So I went to the mayor and told him the story, and that they, had to put the guns on the site. And then a couple of weeks later, came back and said, well, when your guns were stolen, our computer was down. What they didn't say is after my guns were stolen, I bought new guns, and I was robbed a second time 2 weeks later. And so neither was put on the computer, which says, it's impossible or unlikely that the computer would be down both times. So I hope this helps you on getting a better police department. And I had a couple of things, but I don't want to monopolize the time.
I really appreciate it. Like I said, for the sake of time, I will make some concluding comments. First of all, thank each and every one of you for making it. You changed your mind, Danny? You want to say something? Okay, yeah, go ahead.
Well, first of all, I want everybody to pay attention to what we are doing this for. Because I want everybody to keep the image that all of this is because of Anthony Child's death. Everything. Everything we're doing here today and everything we're going to do here further is going to be in honor of his death. I, for one, would not let his name be forgotten. His family is here. We've contacted the family. We're going to set up a memorial service at the place where he was slain. And for many years, I've personally seen people take things like this and use it for self-gain. Being a young advocate of this city, I will not tolerate that. Being that I respect the family and I respect the fact that he was slain in the streets of Shreveport, I will not tolerate that. We're going to fight until we have no fight left in us. We're not going to give up. Like what happened in the past, the Citizens Review Board was overlooked by the Senate. We're going to keep on fighting. We're going to challenge, and we're going to keep on challenging. And again, what this city needs is more young people to advocate for the city. Because so many years I've been hearing that we believe the children are our future. Teach them well and let them lead the way. Well, now the children are grown, so let us lead. Thank you.
Come on, we got one. We got the mayor.
Now, I just want to say I thank each and every one of you for coming out, spending your time in the middle of the day to come and talk to us, talk to elected officials, to educate us on what we can do to make our community safer, as I said in my opening comments. I don't have meetings just to have meetings. You all didn't leave work just to leave work and come and talk and then go back without action coming out of what you're doing. I didn't take out time out of my schedule to do that. Yeah, we acknowledge elected officials when they walk in the room, but I'm a stern believer that the highest office you can hold is that of a citizen, and you all are showing that today. So, like I said, thank you all for coming out and informing us. Myself, along with my council, we hear you, and like I said, this will not be in vain. We will continue to make we will continue to meet, we'll continue to make steps. As a matter of fact, we're going to respond to your list that you've given us. And if there's anybody else who didn't have an opportunity to have input into that particular list, reach out to us as well. So we'll respond to that particular list. But as you can see, there are certain things that we can do from a city standpoint. There are certain things that we're going to have to do from a state standpoint going forward. This was an educational session as much as it was, anything else. So thank you all for showing how much you care about our city. And I will, again, be true to my word and let Councilman Coach Pastor Green close us out with some prayer.
All right.
Can we all just make a circle and join hands?
One other thing that's on the list that we didn't, well, we neglected to put it on there, but we discussed it in our meeting, is that I know you've been talking about it, the body cams. That's on our list. We need to get that to you. That's on the other list, but we wanted to get that to you as well. And I'm gonna let my good friend pray us out.
Thank you, Lord, for this day, and thank you for this opportunity. Thank you for coming in our midst, and thank you for these willing people willing to make our city better. We ask you to give us the wisdom, the knowledge, and the courage. Thank you for what you have done. And Lord, this family that's here today, we ask you to lift them up and let them know that you can and you will take care. Let them know that his death was not in vain, that you've said in your word that all things work together for the good. If we love you, it's according to your purpose. And we just thank you for every soul here. Bless their coming in and bless their going out. Thank you for what you've done. And Lord, we're going to praise you in advance for what you're going to do. It's in Jesus' name we pray. Everybody said amen.
Don't leave.
And I can stay in Shreveport. I got to be running around.
Yeah, I got you. Thank you.
Man, you're the real deal.
Let us respond to this. I'm going to add body camera. We'll respond to this, and then like 24 hours out, set up a meeting so y'all can come and see what we can do from the city standpoint.
We're not meeting with a group anymore. We're going to bring the three of us in.
This was the group. This is the community meeting. This is a community meeting. We'll have a plan of action. I'll open it up so others can have some input as well. And that's how we'll go forward. Sounds great, man. Okay.
Yeah, I told Kamara when we first, all the nations, we have it. They know I know. I got right out there. I know. I said, this is brother. Always y'all shoot him down. You don't know what God got in place.
Oh yeah, he leads the way.
And God led the way all the time. You got to know. I got right out there. Oh, he's too young. He ain't been in politics. He don't know this. He don't know that. I say, but